Focus on the client and the money will follow. But what if I told you that building a multiple six-figure podcast production agency took way more than just client work? In today's episode, I'm pulling back the curtain on 3 key strategies that skyrocketed my business and ones that you can implement too, no matter where you are on your journey. Let's dive in. You may agree with this or not, but I'm of the mindset of always prioritizing relationships over revenue. When I first started my agency, and even before I started my agency, I knew and realized how important relationships were and are. It wasn't about landing every single client that came my way, but it was about working with the clients that felt most aligned to my vision and my desire for the type of agency that I wanted to grow. It was about connecting deeply with the right types of clients and creating partnerships with the different people that I was working with. This is something that I still value so deeply today. It was true for me then, and it's true for me now. It's about creating relationships with people that you genuinely feel like you could be their best friend. I'm not saying that you have to be all of your clients as friends. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is when you're working with people that feel like friends, that feel like they could be your friends, I feel like you can deliver a way better product and you just build more rapport, you build more trust, and ultimately you deliver a better product. You want to do good work for the people that you value and that you trust. And in the same way that you need to respect the person that you're working with, you want to make sure that the person that you're working with is also respecting you. The key for me here has always been building relationships that are trustworthy and over-delivering on the promises that we made to people, making sure that all of the stuff that we were creating for them, the journey that we were helping them on with their podcast, and every single thing that we touched as it related to their podcast overall, making sure that it super exceeded even my own expectations. Something that I say to clients a lot is, if I wouldn't do it on my show and if I wouldn't do it for myself, I wouldn't do it for you. And I don't mean that in a way of testing something new or trying something new, but mostly I mean it in the way of the quality of the work that we deliver. If we're not going to do it for my podcast, and if I wouldn't put that on the airwaves, I'm not going to let you do the same thing. So that's been something that's been really, really, really important for us. And for me, has been to make sure that we are creating content for clients, for podcasters, and help them pull their message out there in a way that resonates with their audience, yes, but also in a way that feels good for them, and then taking that and amplifying it even more. When I think back to 2019, when I first started Happiness Happens, it was a solo podcast. If you didn't know, if you're listening and you're new to this, I had a podcast called Happiness Happens, and it was a solo show. Then I started bringing guests onto the podcast, and I started interviewing these different people, business owners, entrepreneurs, authors, and really learning about who they are, what their business does, and the type of work that they do in the world. It was really interesting because I didn't know it back then. But eventually, fast forward 2 years, some of those very first podcast guests would be my very first clients in my production agency. So when I went to launch my services in March of 2021, I put a call out for services, and they booked out in 72 hours podcast launch services, and we have never stopped since. But some of those very first podcast guests that I had on Happiness Happens were some of the people that booked in those spots. And the really powerful thing here has been and is we had an amazing working relationship. They referred us business time and time again because they were happy with the quality of the work that we were putting out there. That is really important. But people don't just refer you out if they don't trust you. People refer business when they trust the person that they are doing business with. Referrals started to become the backbone of the agency's growth. And here's the key. I didn't just deliver results for clients. I nurtured the relationship beyond the project that we were working on, checking in, asking questions, seeing how I could be of help or of value, celebrating their wins, celebrating their accomplishments, sitting down with them to have a conversation, to help pull a story out, or to help get their mindset back on track. These were all things that I did back then and still do today that I honestly believe separate us from the rest of the podcast producers out there. Ultimately, anyone can go with any podcast production agency, but really at the end of the day, the relationship that you have with the person you're working with is so key. And you need to be able to have the same type of values and alignment and goals on each side for that relationship to work. So I want you to think about your current clients and your current collaborators. How do you show up for them beyond the scope of work that you do for them? Not in a way that sacrifices your boundaries, not in a way that makes you burnt out, not in a way that makes you feel like you're doing things that you don't want to do, but in a genuine way, in an effort to nurture, create, and build a deeper and stronger relationship. This can be a simple message on Voxer, an email check-in, a note on WhatsApp, or sending them a resource that you know they might need. When you can create these little checkpoints in your client journey and with your client that you're working with, this starts to change the game for you. You develop that trust between one another, and that's how you form long-standing relationships and more referrals into the business. In addition to that, before we move on to the next point, I really think there's so much power in tailoring and making sure that your client experience is a good one. The way in which your clients feel when you interact with them, when you work with them, how you work with them, the quality of the work that you do, the value that you give them, the priority in your day that you can give them also without sacrificing boundaries is all part of the client experience. How are you making people feel like they are part of something bigger than just a podcast production agency? What we're doing here is creating missions and visions and values and growth and messaging. These are all really important pieces when it comes to a client getting their brand out there. So a key strategy for me in growing a multiple six-figure agency has been prioritizing that client relationship. But then also, further than that, what is the client experience like for them? I really want you to think about that in everything that you're doing. Number 2 is productizing services for scalability. In 2021, I knew as soon as I started working with my podcast launch clients that I would need help. And I hired help before I even had the work to give that person. Actually, her name is Sam and she still works with me today, which is so wonderful because it's been almost 3 years at this point, which is so incredible. But what I realized was I can't do it all alone and I need a team to help me do some of the work. So I really looked at what are the things that I love, what are the things that I don't, and who can help me do the things that I don't love to make a better experience for our clients. And then I started working with my one-on-one clients and very quickly realized that if I wanted to scale this thing, if I wanted to grow, yes, I could continue to work with my one-on-one clients, which I absolutely love. But then also it encouraged me to create some digital products right from the bat. Podcast launch guides, monetization guides, SEO resources, tutorials, master classes, my membership, all of these different products that we've created have been to help podcasters who can't necessarily afford the high ticket production rate, but also deserve to have that type of quality content on their own as well. Yes, it created additional revenue, which I'm so grateful for, but it also allowed us to position ourselves as the go-to agency for done for you and do-it-yourself type of content. Scaling to these numbers hasn't just been about getting more and more and more work, more and more and more clients. It was about working smarter and diversifying my time and diversifying how I delivered value. But I really want to emphasize something that's really key here, and I said it a little bit in the beginning, is knowing when you're ready to outsource before you're actually feeling that pinch that you are. So I told you that I brought on Sam to my team quite quickly. And then really soon after that, I brought on Emily, who's the lead editor at my agency. Having both of them in their respective roles has allowed me to focus in on the things that I love the most, which is that client relationship, which is the podcast strategy, which is the management side of all things. And don't get me wrong, I actually do love editing. So this was a harder thing for me to outsource at first. But then when I started to realize if I wanted to be able to provide podcasters with the strategy that they're looking for from me specifically, because I have quite a unique background in the marketing space of PR, media buying, advertising, communications, if I wanted to bring all these different pieces in together, then I need to have a team that is supporting the overall vision and the overall growth and the overall mission. And so Sam and Emily have been absolutely instrumental in helping bring what we see today as Volt Productions to life. So 2 things here. If you're listening to this and you're wondering, how do I take what I have and scale it in a way that is significant and significant to you? Think about, are there tasks that you could be giving to somebody else today for them to do? And are there pieces of your knowledge that you can package out into something that is digital, a digital product of some sort to help you with that scalability? The third thing that has been so essential in all of this podcast agency growth has been becoming the thought leader in my niche. Because here's a little secret that not a lot of people will tell you. People don't buy from you just because you're good at what you do. They buy from you because they trust you. And for me, this has meant showing up consistently every single day, week over week, month over month, year over year, sharing my truth, sharing what I know, sharing the behind the scenes, sharing parts of my life that maybe I wouldn't typically share, helping people tap into what my own emotions are, and ultimately helping me grow a powerful brand online, which has led to speaking at conferences, B-roll footage to help me create content for YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, speaking at different virtual events, talking to different communities, sharing authenticity online. Positioning myself as the go-to person in the podcast production space has been a really, really, really powerful way to gain more revenue, to get more clients into the Volt production family, to build trust with people. Even doing this episode here today, we're having a conversation. We get to hear behind the scenes. We get to share in some secrets that maybe you wouldn't hear from anyone else. Sharing valuable insights for free isn't just marketing, it's trust building. And because of a lot of this content online, we've attracted so many incredible launch management clients to the Volt Productions family, which has been honestly amazing. When I get on a call with a new client or a new potential client and I hear where they found me from, oh, I found you from your Instagram, or I saw your LinkedIn post, or I really liked your TikTok. That to me is so cool. You get the vibe, That's something that I hear all the time from people is, I saw your content and I loved it because I love your energy. So if you're not showing up and you're not positioning your own self as the thought leader in your space, how are other people supposed to know who you are and discover your content and follow along and be excited for what you're going to share and what you're putting out there, right? This is a really interesting concept that I think a lot of business owners don't always get, how important it is to build a brand alongside the business that you're building. Having these different pieces is so key in your overall growth strategy. At the core of everything you're going to do is building trust. At the core of any service, product, sale you're going to make, people are handing you their money because they trust that you're going to do a good job with it. And that is not a responsibility we've ever taken lightly within the agency. So when you prioritize trust, you prioritize scalability, and then also when you prioritize relationships over the revenue that you're generating and the client experience, that is when you sit in a really cool spot. That is when alignment happens. That is when the work that we get to do every single day just feels more fun, effortless, easy. And I'm not saying that every single day is easy and that we don't need to struggle or anything like that. Like, it's not been an easy cakewalk in the park. Absolutely not. But what it has been is super fulfilling and honestly a dream come true. And I'm so grateful that I get to do this work every single day. And so these are my secrets to having built a multiple six-figure podcast production agency in probably, what year are we? 2024? In about 3 years, which is really, really powerful. But all of this started with my podcast, Happiness Happens, and then continued on with my other podcast as it relates to podcasting. And so what I've seen time and time and time again is the power in sharing your message, the importance in sharing your voice, and the ways in which we can grow our shows, grow our podcasts outside of the traditional box that everyone tells us to do. And then you can find different ways to monetize. And then you can find different ways to connect and make those brand deals. But it all starts with relationships, trust, and showing up as the thought leader that you know you are. And here's the thing. These are not strategies that have only worked for just me. These would work for you too. Start with one, whichever one feels the most fun for you, and let it build. Let it get that momentum. And by the way, if you are ready to continue to grow, continue to scale, continue to monetize your own content and your own podcast, check out my podcast growth lab. The product is linked in the episode notes below, and it's packed with actionable strategies that you can take right now, today, and implement in everything that you are doing, whether it's a podcast or honestly something else. Thanks for tuning in today, and I will see you on the next one. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and join me for more. Thanks.